this is a very special time. And if we can help young people understand where they are in this journey of becoming, and to distill everything that they possibly can and to sustain a sense of possibility and hopefulness and vulnerability and a thirst for serving each other, then we'll be okay.
I have to take you back to when you were student body president. What were your dreams and aspirations for the students at that time? What was it that they wanted from the campus and from the world, so to speak?
And I think it varied, depending upon who you were as a student by any number of different identity indicators, and what your own socioeconomic framing was. I mean, we had then, as now, one of the most phenomenal accounting departments anywhere around. And we all took great pride in the accomplishments of those grads, and we still do to this very day. And so my aspiration for those students was that they would come here and continue to get a solid education that permitted them to go into the marketplace and to lead in their organizations. My aspirations for those who were willing to become teachers would be that maybe that something about their experience here becoming a teacher at Cal State Northridge would have opened them up to a broader view of what teaching could be in the lives, particularly of inner city youth. Just a whole host of different kinds of narratives about change. That period was absolutely about change, about looking at organizations, critiquing them, and then trying to summon the courage to imagine what could other possibilities be.
This campus, since I've come here, I've only been here 30 years, not 50.
Good for you. Good for you. 30 is a good number.
It has increasingly become more and more, its students have been increasingly become more and more diverse.
Yes.
During your 50 years when you were just one of a handful, I probably literally mean a handful of students of color, to now when it's clearly a minority-majority institution. What does that feel like inside?
Almost like you've described it. I mean, early on, the goal was to diversify the enrollment. Access was what it was all about. And EOP was an example of that as a vehicle. And so now, by dint of, in part, demographics in the region, because we have been a traditionally and not an open access institution exactly, you have to meet certain criteria, but we've really, regional California State University campuses serve the folk who are from that region. And as the demographics changed in our area here, we found our enrollment here more diversified. And so the yearning for that to happen happened some by our recruiting and outreach targeted, but some just by dint of what happened around us in the demographics. The stretch now is for our faculty to become equally diverse. And that's a challenge. Some of that's a pipeline problem or challenge in terms of getting kids of color to conceptualize themselves is moving through the ranks and becoming a part of a faculty and living the experience of gaining tenure, which is no joke, on a college campus and wanting that kind of a life. We'll get there. The number of young people who I see today talking about kids of color going on in higher education is as diverse as I've ever seen it. And so it's going to happen. I mean, the scholarship is going to be there. And I think you have to study things of interest to people of different backgrounds to get people of different backgrounds to be able to be drawn to it. So I see those things happening. And I think that I know that we have initiatives. We have new structures and systems for faculty hiring and recruiting here on our campus that I believe will at some point in the not so distant future permit us to really claim a far more diverse faculty who will themselves find community. And because they have found community and satisfaction here, that in and of itself will serve as a recruitment for other faculty of color.
You have been, no denying it, you're a black male.
That's right. Every day.
In Southern California.
Yeah.
And you have had to carry the responsibility. I won't call it a burden. It's a responsibility of comporting yourself in such a way, not just for you and the safety of Dr. William Watkins, but comporting yourself for your students. What is it like to have that responsibility of being a role model that you may not have wanted to be, but it comes with the job?
It's not been a burden. It's been a blessing. I think many of us want to live a life of purpose and meaning. And that's not always a straight line. That's often not an easy road to hoe. But if you are doing it with intention and if it aligns with you and your values, and that's not the value set of everyone, but in my crazy calculus in my head, it's always been part of me to want to be responsible in a number of ways, and certainly being responsible from a change agent perspective has been important to me. To role model for young professionals or students who are coming along, and to be almost like the custodian said to me, you can make it. Are you working at it? Very little, I think we know, of value comes by just hanging out. You have to get with it. You have to be able to develop the capacity to be in the world, but not of the world in some ways. I mean, you learn what are the requirements in the space that you're in, but you don't necessarily allow those things to become who you are, but they are things that you may need to do in the skin that you're in order to navigate the systems of a particular organization. So I want to give young people an opportunity to have the agency to think and to dream and to make mistakes and not have to be perfect about everything. I have seen all kinds of people be successful and all kinds of people fail. And our parading about in this life is if we have the absolute answer for everything. There's magic in what individuals are able to bring to situations. And that's my message to young people. I want you to dream. I can give you some guidelines. I can tell you how it's been done. But guess what? Now there's an opportunity for you to think about you. What's your place in the sun? How do you want to show up? Let's try to support you in that, as long as it's being done in a way that's not illegal. I don't encourage anybody to go to jail. But I think that if we teach young people how to dream, and if we let them know that all the problems have not been solved, the conflict that's happening right now in Israel, to sit and to tell students from SJP on the one side and students supporting Israel or Hillel on the other side, that guess what? You guys may be at odds, but what I want you to realize is that we didn't fix a problem that's now in your lap. We need you to fix the problem. And to me, one of the most empowering things you can say to young people is, we need your help. We need you to fix the problem. We need you to take advantage of the opportunity. And that's how I try to exist and show up.
I have had, over my tenure here at the university, a number of young men of color who have told me that your example, whether they're black or brown or Asian, your example told them they could do it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thanks for sharing that.
And many of them have never met you. But don't we need more William Watkins?
Well, we need. Well, I'm not sure exactly what all we need, but we certainly need before us at all times, hopefully people who are doing it not just for themselves. And that's how I think about all of this. This is not for me, and we need people who are blessed like I have been blessed to have a family that's been willing to share me. It probably sounds weird, but I met my wife here as an undergraduate.
She's stunning.
She campaigned for me when I ran for student body president, and We got married in 1980, and so for 44 years, we have been a couple, and plus some more on top of that. And so she is my absolute best friend. When I'm welcoming students to new student orientation as a university administrator and tell them about the glories of college going, the thing that I get most response from is when I tell them, and I met my wife here. They, everybody.
We're all romantics.
This is a very special time. And if we can help young people understand where they are in this journey of becoming, and to distill everything that they possibly can, and to sustain a sense of possibility and hopefulness and vulnerability, and a thirst for serving each other, then we'll be okay.
Vulnerability, that was the word you mentioned. That's not one usually hears from a leader telling young people,
Yeah.
Why is vulnerability so important?
I think this generation needs to hear it. I think that what they deal with now is pretty tough stuff. The data is clear in terms of anxiety and depression and the difficulties that I think this generation struggles with in terms of trying to find out whether or not tomorrow is truly theirs and what it will be like. And they need to be able to be honest with us about those kinds of things, and honest about what their experiences are. We had to kind of tough it out, and there are things that in our generation were churning inside of us, and some of us didn't have good outcomes because we couldn't talk about things. But I think this is a world where we're all better served to be honest about the realities with which we are struggling, what our needs are, and that we are generous enough in heart to help people around us. I think that some of the most important help that young people get today is from other young people. When students are open enough to share that they are in need to their fellow students, today more than certainly during my generation, students reach out and get help for their fellow students. And so just keeping all of that undercover and, playing as if life is, a bed of ease, that's not where it's at. It's about really being open in those particular kinds of things. And in organizational life, having employees who are going through struggles but not being able to share them in the place that they spend most of their time, i.e. their places of employment. There's something about that we need to evaluate. COVID did that for us. I mean, it really reduced us to a certain essence of our humanity that I think has transformed how we deal with each other in spaces.
Well, you've been here 50 years, so I'm going to play a little game.
Okay. All right. Let's see.
That first 10 years, what were the most important things that happened between you and or at the university, or that impacted you in those first 10 years that you were here?
Probably the most important things were, of course, getting through school, getting a career, getting situated there, and sustaining some relationship back within communities during that period of time. I would say that first 10 years or so was that. And then, by the time 1980, then I'm married, so, and so nothing more important than that.
What was the most important thing during those first 10 years that happened at CSUN, or San Fernando Valley State College at that time, that showed you where it was going?
Well, I think certainly the seminal period was the demonstrations of the late 60s and early 70s, and the fundamental impact on what learning was going to be and who was going to have an opportunity to learn. The next thing, quite frankly, was the Northridge earthquake.
Really?
And I was a freshman when that happened. And so that really was just.
Oh, you mean
I'm sorry.
You meant the Sylmar earthquake.
The Sylmar earthquake. That's right. I've gone through a couple of these right here. So
wait a minute, you were just a freshman in 94?
That was a Sylmar earthquake, and that was just crazy making. I mean, you're talking about being frightened, but the campus got damaged in such a way that it had to reconstruct itself in some ways, and like it did subsequently with the Northridge earthquake. But yeah, those really big things, I think, and then moving from being a California State University, from a California State universities and colleges to becoming the California State University system. It was a big deal in '72 when we became the California State University. We're a university, like overnight we were transformed into something very different. But that was a tremendous moment of arrival for this institution at that time. Yeah.
What about in the next 10 years and your 20th? 10 to 20 years.
Well, I'm not going to let you do this because I'm going to miss some.
Someone will come and haunt you.
Some things in between there.
The past 20 years.
Yeah.
What about over the course of your 50 years? What transformative actions, occurrences happened that just stand out to you?
Yeah. When being student body president in 1973. Being there in '74 with the opening of the Ovia Library, and representing the student body as a part of that opening ceremony and being on program, to then fast forwarding to 2020, and chairing the committee that had Ovia's name taken off of the library. That's a tremendous juxtaposition from moving towards that almost symbolic honoring of someone, to then going through a period where students were saying to us, but did you really take a look at that person? And do you really want us to go and celebrate that person based upon what it is that person's other part was about? And should that be the name on the library? Very, very difficult decision to make. So, my journey has seen some of those kinds of things happen during the length and breadth of our time here. I'm tremendously proud that I'm a leader on a campus that's had 4 university female presidents in a row. Mm-hmm. Nobody else can claim that, and in my view, there's an absolute difference in the way in which women lead organizations as opposed to men. I'm not going to put all of that down on tape right now, but I can tell you,
positive.
I can tell you, it is very positive, and I think that the heart of this campus now, and making it through earthquake recovery. When you think about the very steely resolve of Belinda Wilson and the Jolene Kester and then Diane Harrison and then this president here, Erica Beck, who is exactly the president that we need for today for this institution. The campus has been blessed to have the leadership that it needed at given points in time to allow it to become.
It must have been something. I was hired in '94, but I covered Doctor. I was covering you guys before.
Yeah.
Before I was hired, and what a different person Dr. Wilson was. The way she comported herself, the way she spoke, her depth of knowledge. And I had covered Dr. Cleary, nothing against Dr. Cleary, but it was such a 180 in approach and vision and thinking. And before the earthquake, I thought, this is going to shake up CSUN. Either it's going to wake up the sleeping giant, or the sleeping giant's going to explode. It was something else.
Jim Cleary and Belinda Wilson were very different. Jim Cleary got here in '69 after, the January takeover of the administration building and he came here
to deal with that,
to settle a campus. And at the end of the day, I forget 20 some odd years or whatever length of time he was here, I think he accomplished those ends. It allowed the institution to address those things that were broken, not fully. He certainly left work to be done that had to be carried on. But I think the grounding of this campus in a very solid curriculum and academic program, the gradual, probably too gradual for my liking, but the ultimate diversification of our student body and trying to figure out how to do that in an effective way. And then, just the physical things that happened in the building of this plant here. And then, Belinda comes along and Dr. Wilson comes along and with, to me, the right almost corporate skill set to be able to deal with the federal government to get the resources that we needed to build. We built this campus. I mean, I was here in the front of the campus when she arrived on the morning of that earthquake. She and her husband Louis had been on a winter break, and and the earthquake hits, and they come back. And I can remember so vividly seeing her in this just pain, of looking at her campus and smoldering and et cetera that was going on, and kind of walking away to herself, and then coming back at some point and says, "We're reopening. We're reopening. We're going to make this campus what it should be." And from that moment on, continue to learn what needed to be learned to be able to give us what is, really physically one of the most endowed campuses in the CSU.
Why did you go back and get your doctorate?
Because people kept calling me Dr. Watkins. So that sounds a bit trite, but, having become an assistant vice president, students would all routinely call me Dr. Watkins, Dr. Watkins. And then I had I don't know if you remember Greg Jackson, who was over in education, God rest his soul. He would say, "You need to go back and get your doctorate degree." And, at some point I said, "Enough, I yield," and was admitted over at UCLA and had a tremendous experience there to complete the doctorate degree. Glad I did. But yeah, it was sometimes the universe will tell you what you need to hear. And if you're able to listen to, sometimes you become those things that were just lying in wait. And so, yeah, I went back.
Thank you for joining us for Matador Memories. You can watch and listen to more of our podcasts on the CSUN Conversations website and become part of the CSUN Conversations community.